Let's go to Miami, where the Heat had just lost to the Pacers. They have not had a great season, but are still in a playoff spot. They're above 500, which I'm not going to lie to you. The first couple of weeks of the season, I didn't think they would get to that. They're a couple games over. They're sixth in the Eastern Conference. They lose to an Indiana team that's been scuffling as of late. And Jimmy Butler goes to the podium after the game, and it's been a weird season for him. He's been out a little bit. He was obviously out in the playoffs last year. And Jimmy Butler has this like depressing answer in the press conference after the game.
And I don't shoot the ball a lot, but we won't sit here and say that I don't play hard.
What will fix it? What do you want to see happen to fix it?
What do I want to see happen? I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court. But I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop. And I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
A lost art in today's media, the great follow-up question. He needs to get his joy back, and credit to whomever that was who asked the follow-up. Can you do that here in Miami? Probably not. This is a team that boasts Heat culture and how they all do everything the right way. They play the right way. They carry themselves the right way. Not unlike what we saw in New England with the Patriot way for so long. Of course, the Patriots, though, won championships. Miami doesn't do that anymore. And so they boasted this for years, the Heat culture. They put it on their jerseys. And here's a team that just had a tough loss, but is, making things work. They're in a playoff position here in the new year, and their franchise player is saying, I'm not going to be happy here. They have ripped the joy from me. I just want to hoop. Are you kidding? This could be the end of what we know as the Heat culture. And they still have one of the great coaches in the league in Spoelstra, and they'll put something together. They'll probably make the playoffs this year. But gone are the days of teams worrying about stubbing their toe in the playoffs against Miami. Because Jimmy Butler, Himmy, was the reason for that. Because he was such a good primetime performer. He's not even going to play for the Heat when they're in the playoffs. They're trading him. He's literally like trying to force his way out through the media. He says, I'm not even going to be happy here. This is like John Wall in Houston, man. Like, you got to worry about the guy's well-being. Speaking of which, Zach, I do want to bring you in here because this has been a good season for the Rockets so far. Talk about the turnaround with Ime. This has been a dream.
For sure.
Is there a reunion for Jimmy Butler? A homecoming to Houston?
While I wouldn't mind having, obviously, Jimmy Butler play on this team, I don't think that what the Rockets would have to give up to get him would be worth it. I think
we'll see something like this. I wonder if this lowers the price.
Well, that's true. Or if not, like maybe you're the Rockets and you roll in and they're like, hey, so we want at least, A, B, and C. And you can tell them, well, no, you have a player that cannot find his happiness here anymore. You can get A and B maybe at best.
Yes, so Jimmy's 35, okay? I think still can be an effective player, but he's not shown it this season necessarily. He's still averaging over 17, but he's taken 11 shots in the last 2 games in which he's played 52 minutes. Taken 11 shots. Like, that's not Jimmy Butler. I will say he's not the defender he once was. He used to be one of the best two-way players in the league. He's still pretty good on that end, I would say. He, from what I remember of Ime Ball with the Celtics that one year, would fit that Ime system very well.
He would.
Not, again, 35. He's not Jaylen Brown in terms of the age and the upside, but I think he could fit in that system pretty well. And, of course, as we've talked about for the last 2 years, really, with the Rockets as they try to turn this thing around and really rebuild, is like, you always talk about the young talent and what is going to be, the veteran, who's going to be the veteran presence on this team. And I know this is a bad look, but there's still some of that for Jimmy Butler, because that's essentially what the Heat were doing. It wasn't a full rebuild the way the Rockets, had to do, but they had a bunch of young role players, and they said, hey, we need a guy who can come in and be a star, and be that veteran guy. And that's what Butler was for 2 finals.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like that can be worse in a way, because you have a guy who obviously can still like play phenomenal basketball in Jimmy Butler, but then the guys that you would bring in for pieces where they'd be like, oh, we really got to go get Victor Oladipo. Like, that's the thing that we're missing. Like, it was just like the pieces they would bring in. I love Victor Oladipo from 3. The dude's nice, but it's not the moves that you're like, oh, that's what's going to make us a championship team. It was kind of like, it felt like, no, Jimmy can do this much. We just have to give him a little help when he needed more help than what they were giving.
Right. I could see it.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, the Rockets are in a good spot. I mean, obviously in the standings, but also in terms of leverage, right? They've got some capital there, but they're like, hey, this is our line. And if you don't want to meet it, find someone else that's going to take 35-year-old Jimmy Butler, who has told the world he does not want to play there anymore. Good luck.
I think the other teams I saw brought up were like the Warriors and the Mavs. And of course, I think Stephen A was screaming about the Suns earlier. Like, it's going to be teams like that. I think it was him. It was like, if I'm the Suns, I do everything I can to get Jimmy Butler. I was like, okay. But it'll be interesting to see. I think that, at least from what I know, with the Rockets more so than any of those other teams, though, won't have to like give like the amount of young players they have. If they can find a way of where they're not going to get rid of Alpi, they're not going to get rid of, I see somebody more of like a Cam Whitmore, like, Tar Eason's probably not going to go, but like a Cam Whitmore, or maybe like you give up on, I don't think you give up on Jabari already, but maybe you do, but maybe they find some of those rotation pieces, the younger pieces, to give off to Miami. But I think that there's no way you can cripple the core that you have just for Jimmy Butler. That seems like a very stupid decision.
Golden State's an interesting one for kind of the reasons I like the Rockets thing. He's not coming in to be the leadership guy, obviously, in Golden State, but Warriors have really committed to defense this year. And again, not the defender he was 5 years ago, but when he's healthy, he can still move around and give you some good defense and be a two-way guy. And essentially you're bringing in a role player.
Yeah. Well,
he's not going to be a star wherever he goes.
You bring up a good point, and it was something that I want to get your opinion on then, because I brought it up to Scotty earlier when we were talking about this when I read this quote, is like, I don't see, at least me, and maybe I'm in a small minority here, but I don't view Jimmy Butler as a locker room problem. I never have. Like, the situation in Minnesota, I think there was more to it than just him. Things in Philadelphia, we've seen what happened to things in Philadelphia. Like, I feel like, sure, there are times where you can look at it and be like, Jimmy, maybe that's a little bit too much, but for the most part, it feels justified in a way of where it's like when Jimmy's upset and angry, you can at least figure out, okay, I get why he's lost that joy there. Is being where he's not the main face, not to say that he can't be, but going to a place like Golden State where that's Steph's team and he can just focus purely on playing basketball in a way. Is that what Jimmy then needs to be able to find that love for the game? Obviously nobody knows but him, but is that a better role then for him? Kind of like Philadelphia, where there's other stars. It's like other people's team, but a lot better ran franchise in Philadelphia.
Sure.
Do you think that benefits him?
Yes. I will say, because I understand where you're coming from on these other stops, but I will say the common denominator is Jimmy Butler. Like, Philly fucks up everything. Like, I do get that. Like, right. They do. But Minnesota, Chicago, Philadelphia, and now Miami, the constant is Jimmy Butler with all of this. And this comment he made last night, it's not like he's throwing people under the bus or anything, but it puts your team in a tough position with that. So I think, but then on the flip side, Jimmy has essentially carried his team to the finals twice. in Miami, so I also understand that. I compare it almost to Russell Westbrook because there was always some sort of drama following Russell Westbrook, but yet his teammates loved him. Employees of the team loved him, and he's settled into a role player role in a team this year that could compete for the title in Denver, right? He did it with the Lakers. They didn't win a title, and there were plenty of other issues there, but he seemed to understand his role as a bench guy who had once won an MVP and averaged a triple-double for an entire season. So to your point on that, I think that is good for Jimmy Butler. But I think the jury's still out on whether he is a locker room guy or not. He's always been kind of an odd guy, which doesn't mean you're a locker room cancer.
Yeah.
But there's always something following him. And I'm trying to think of a better example. Like Iverson,
I think your Russell Westbrook one is on point because Russell Westbrook is a guy that I thought the same thing of too, of just like, oh my goodness, here's headache Russell. Like when he first came to Houston, I just thought, this isn't going to be good. I don't know what James Harden sees here. And by the time he left, I missed Russell Westbrook. Like that was a guy that like he helped out, the young players. Like he found his role in the team and he did everything he could to be a good team player to help out his teammates to like he never got in any trouble or anything. And like, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I might've been completely wrong on Russell Westbrook the whole time. Not to say that there aren't things that maybe warranted at part in times like you have with, we talk about there with Jimmy Butler, but I just feel like he's a guy that is able to help out, especially with Russell Westbrook. And I think that Jimmy Butler can do that exact same thing.
I'll give you another example like Westbrook on which this can turn out well for Jimmy Butler. This guy was younger, but another guy who the drama followed him and there just seemed to be something everywhere he went, Kristaps Porzingis.
That's true.
At New York, there's always the drama with the Knicks. They end up trading him away. Dallas, it was a big feud with Luka, and then he's kind of wasting away in Washington. Celtics bring him on, say, hey, you're going to be a big part of this, but you're not the number one guy. And you are actually probably going to be limited in what your role is. And he came in, was an X factor on a championship team. You saw what he did in the finals and playing through injury, and he is one of the most beloved players on a great team.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Butler could be that. Like, I genuinely think he can be that. And I think leadership on the court still stands for something, right? Yeah. And I watched him do this with Miami twice, beating the Celtics in the conference finals. So I think there's still absolutely that route for him to be a role player on a championship contender or championship team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And that's a great point, I think, of bringing him in, telling him like, hey, you're going to be a big part of this, but you're not going to be like the main guy. Helps. It's to still another sports analogy. It's when you're batting third with Barry Bonds behind you. Like, not to say that, Steph Curry, but I mean, like when you have a guy on the team that's the main focus, it helps you out. You're going to see more pitches to hit. You're going to get more opportunities to be able to shine and, maybe find your love for the game back that way.
But make no mistake, the Celtics broke him. Okay, Miami might have broken him at the end, but this reeks of. I use this example a lot. 10 years ago or so, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, Eastern Conference. This is how teams would react to Cleveland because LeBron was on the team, and it wears on you when a team is that good. And the irony of it is Cleveland's pretty good this year too. Cleveland's much better than Miami and can compete for the Eastern Conference. Like, I'm not saying Tatum is LeBron or Jaylen Brown is LeBron, but you're talking about an entity in the Celtics that they feel they can't beat. Okay. And they hate having them in the conference still. And this look at the Celtics of how good they're going to be on paper for a while here, it's probably like, that would probably suck the joy out of playing for the Miami Heat. And seeing the Celtics build this all-star roster, having all NBA guys and locking them up, and Miami just bargain binning and hitting on Jaime Jaquez, with the 10th pick or whatever it was, 12th, 15th pick, and just continuing to do that with Jaquez and Jovic and Terry Rozier And there's a lot on you when you're Jimmy Butler, and you look at the Celtics and you're like, boy, Drew Holiday, man, he can Porzingis. These guys are just cogs in the machine. That must be so nice. Celtics. Celtics run not a great stretch here, by the way. Losing 4 out of 5 at one point. They did not play well at all on Christmas Day. And yet here they are. They've broken Jimmy Butler. They might have broken the Knicks in the way that they handled their offseason. And who knows if the Knicks are a better team than what they were last year and the thing they had going. The Celtics are just collecting pelts, putting them on the wall. Man, Cleveland will be next. Indiana, Cinderella run to the conference finals last year. They play well in the conference finals, and yet they still get swept by the Celtics. And here they are under 500 at the new year. The Celtics, man, they're crushing teams under their weight. This is what happens now.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.